Hey, welcome into another evening here, Tony talking trash about music. I'm going to be talking tonight about a recent loss that we had. And people know by some of the earlier people that are familiar to our podcast know a little bit about the some of the podcasts that we did early on, how big of a man how big of a place Brian Wilson holds. In my personal lore, I've been a big fan of him going all the way back to when I really first heard that vocal blend, that vocal sound. And it's a shame since he passed on. Really Brian's history. We're going to talk tonight about his solo records, and when we talk about his solo records, we kind of pick up at a time following the Beach Boys. I guess the last record that he really did was that one that Steve Levine, or what the guy that did Culture Club, produced for them in 1985. The one with California, Totally Rad, California. One of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. Really bad stuff. Some of the bad era happened, and I guess he participated a little bit with that record in my car, that one with Still Cruising. But the truth of it is that he pretty much did a dividing line when you're talking about Landy Part 2. Now Brian, everybody knows from watching the documentaries, Brian had his problems. It started with him withdrawing essentially from the live show, and because the whole burden of the composition, arrangements, and everything was on him. Recordings were. And so Brian, as a result, decided to stop going on the road. Bruce Johnson steps in after a short Glenn Campbell's stint. But essentially, the whole idea of Brian as kind of a drug-crazed individual kind of begins at that point. And, when it first started, you get California Girls, and you get all these beautiful things and Pet Sounds, and everybody likes it. And then a little bit darker themes come in sometimes with Smile and some of these things, and it was a problem, especially with Mrs. O'Leary's Cow Fire and all that. Everybody saw that. So as a result of all that stuff, eventually he drifts to a point to where he's working with the band, and then he builds a studio in his home where he can sit in his bed and listen to what's going on in the studio all the time, but rarely came down to do anything about it. Kind of called the bed years, and then following that, you get the bizarre, Mount Vernon and Fairway, that crazy thing about the Magic Transistor Radio on Holland, which was the first clue into people that, like, man, this guy is kind of gone. And then some of the strange stuff went. You got like what's that song? I had to fix a lot of things this morning. When he goes through the whole checklist of his day, I forget what the name of that one was. But, some of his stuff went on. And you really talking about Brian Wilson's solo stuff. Ironically, the first two solo records he made were both singles. Caroline No was credited to him instead of the band. And so was astonishingly Getting Hungry was credited to him and Mike Love. And I don't know if that was one of those little things because of Caroline No or whatever, but what a bizarre song to number one put out as a single. Smiley Smile by itself has some really strange, definitely drug influenced sound productions. It really sounded, a lot of it was like a cassette recorder type of a thing, but that's kind of how he started off. And then, we get to the years. Okay, Brian has a problem. We get to the point where Brian can't function the way that he did before. And Brian checks out and with the bed thing, and they get Dr. Landy involved. And Dr. Landy gets involved, and he comes back. And they need him. And this is after, 15 big ones. They get him roll him out of bed, and then he does the perplexing but brilliant Beach Boys Loves You, which I guess could be considered kind of a Brian Wilson solo record, really. You're thinking about it. I mean, if you're really truly talking about the meat and potatoes of what you mean about his own creation, I would say that was probably more. I mean, there's some great vocals from Carl and Dennis and other people and Mike, but there's really most of the instrumentation is done in him in a very simple early synth way. It's a strange record, so if you haven't heard that, there's some great videos on here about the making of that record, Beach Boys Love You, which has always been one of my favorites, one of my friends' favorites. For some reason, somewhere when I was working in Georgetown, I ran to a place that had a plethora of Canadian cutouts of that record for really cheap in the mid 80s, and we bought like multiple copies of it. It was like 49 cents or 99 cents or something. So we bought like 10 copies of it or something. Just crazy. And because it was good trade barter, Did a lot of trade back then, trading tapes, trading stuff. There's a lot of Beach Boys stuff that we didn't collect it. But nevertheless, we move forward, and we kind of move forward to the first time that he comes back. Brian comes back, and he's back to the point where he's participating, but then you see it start to drift. Like, if you see the video somewhere on the, there's a video out when they were trying to keep the summer alive, and he seems really kind of out of it at that point. I think it wasn't too long after that, with his obesity and what was going on, that they did the deal with Landy, and that was really, that was the '80s time. I think that was the second time which really led to the separation of him from the band. That's when Landy kind of really took a little bit more control, when he started creeping the songwriting credits and people started saying, "Oh God, we have a control thing here." And mired within that, Brian really starts his solo career. Now, is it a Brian that we have? There's flashes of it that would knock you out, completely knock you out. I remember when the record came out, the first record came out, we played it in the store. People were just like, play that more, play it more. People were astonished by it. I sold a lot of it because I played it a lot. Because I think people missed that sound. They really missed his whole thing. And some of the songs are good, but some of the songs are really twisted lyrically. And, I know his wife was involved in some of the writing of that. But then you move on, then you heard about Sweet Insanity. And Sweet Insanity is one, really, if you think about it, is really kind of a missed out album. I didn't rate it in this, but in a way, Getting In Over My Head, in a way, is kind of has a bunch of songs from that, and they're redone, not really as good a terms as they were before. The one problem that you have with a lot of the sound quality we've heard from the bootleg of Sweet Insanity, which was supposed to be the follow-up to his first record, was the sound quality. The sound quality of the sources were not good. There was a lot of hiss. You had the Joan Rivers song and all that, the song about smart girls and everything. I don't know. Anyway, but you moved on, and so his career moved on from there. He was controlled a little more. He met Joe Thomas, did that stuff, did a few more productions, big time things. But substantively, only really did a lot of work after he came back and put together Smile. And I did not count Smile. Smile was something obviously beforehand. I didn't count those singles. I didn't even count Key of Disney. And I would have put, if I'm going to put Key of Disney, truthfully, I'd probably start out at that. And either for the Christmas record, although the Christmas record is good, is a pretty standard fare. And I'm not going to include it just for me to put it on the bottom of this list. So I have really 8 Brian Wilson solo records here that I'm going to rank this evening. Brian holds a very dear place to me, but I'm not coming here in any way, shape, or form saying that this represents the best sum of substance of what he does. It certainly does not. There's some good things on here, but obviously here's a guy who peaked with his band and peaked with the work with his band and created a revolution, really harmonic revolution with the way he wrote. And he really didn't have to do more than that. After that, there were some problems. Obviously he was damaged, and he came back a couple times. He came back one time, then went back again. And that was back in the hamburgers and the cocaine and the living with a nurse Carolyn and all that stuff before they got him the last time. But then the big legal thing about getting him out of there. But we're going to end up with 8 of these. We're going to go and rank 8 of these records. And I'm going to start off with one of the last ones here. And Joe put this one up here. I should have this on vinyl. Thought I had it somewhere. I don't see it. I thought I had all but really a couple of these. But number 8, I've got 8 of these. And so at number 8, I'm going to do At My Piano. Now, At My Piano really involves a spare, mellow take of his tracks, of some of the best tracks, released on Decca. And it's essentially instrumental re-recordings. It's really odd. You look at the photo of it on the cover, truthfully creeps me out a little bit. It's a weird photo of him at my piano. And he says that the album wasn't his idea. People seem to like it. Some people think it's charming. But you've got God Only Knows, In My Room. You go through California Girls, Warmth of the Sun. As far as tracks go, hell, this would be number one. But I'm flipping to exactly the bottom. It's just funny. He plays instrumentally that part of Mount Vernon to me is the most interesting thing here. And does its thing, Sketches a Smile, which is really interesting, and Until I Die and Friends. So I think some of the records, chosen were good. But as far as what I want to listen to, man, that's definitely my number 8. I'm going to go beyond that to one that I'm really not a huge fan of either, and that is the reimagination of Gershwin. Now, I didn't put the Disney one on. Let me explain. Disney would have been number 9. He's really conducting and producing other artists with the Disney. He's really not the featured artist. So it's nice to have him get to work with like different people, Elton John, people like that in these songs. But it's not him really as an artist. He's more of a producer there and does it kind of in a Beach Boys style. And that would have been my number 9. So I don't want to get confusing with this. We're going to number 7 with Reimagines Gershwin, and that was in 2010, and that was on the Walt Disney label. I was a little bit bummed about this one. I think that to me there was a little bit of a downturn then. I mean, that Lucky Old Son was the the original work that he did that before, and it really didn't have the impact of some of the stuff coming on the heels of Smile and some of the other stuff. But the Like and I Love You is one of the ones that was put out as one. And it's, the Gershwin stuff, you can tell it means a lot to him with Rhapsody in Blue. You hear that, you've heard him with that plenty of nothing. They can't take that away from me. I Got Rhythm, Someone to Watch Over Me. But to me, Summertime, I find it strange that you have some guy that is every bit as important as Brian Wilson spending his time really glazing George Gershwin. And to me, it sounds like a thing that was arranged by the company. It was. And that's where we're at with that. Let's go the one right before that. 2008 is the next one, and I'm talking about That Lucky Old Son. This one here with the oranges on the front. Have you seen the video of it? They did a video very similar to what they did with the Smile thing, where they had the band. They spoke with the band, and they talked about them bringing these songs up. This was his album released 2008, and Van Dyke had some spoken word in it, and I guess it was based on the Frankie Lane song, the world of it. But the title of it. But he's worked with Scott Bennett, and you've got different stuff here. I mean, Oxygen to the Brain was the big one that they had. Good Kind of Love, Midnight's Another Day. But the truth of this is, Forever She'll Be My Surfer Girl. This is a record that I believe is kind of probably his last gasp of trying to make solo material. And nobody ever said this, and nobody ever did that. But I think that the reaction to this, the very lukewarm reaction, and it was, people were a little bit surprised that it was not more, I got the hype sticker here. It's beautiful. The inside of the artwork's beautiful. Between the pictures, Midnight's Another Day, Going Home. You know that. But Mexican Girl, good record. Produced much as a masterwork, but truthfully, lyrically, it's a little bit corny at times. You've got the Van Dyke parts that are neat, but it just sounds to me like something that they kind of forced over the line. There wasn't it sounds almost like in the same format as Put Together, as almost like they tried to do Smile. But the problem is that the songs were not ruminated enough at the time for that. So this may be one that would be a concept that would be good to revisit at some time in the future. But for the couple pearls that are it's kind of to me like seeing the back end of Brian go out through the door. And in that way, it's a little bit depressing. So we're going to go on to number 5. My number 5 is going to be, and I'm going to have to go to this other pile here. Hold on a second here. Guys, this number 5 is going to be, and I'm going to put it right back in once I do this. Hold on a second here. Is going to be the collaboration with Van Dyke Park's Orange Crate Art. Let me see if I see it here. Do I have it here? Do I have it here? Hold on a second. Oh, I do have it here. It's in a brine pile. I'm sorry. Does anybody remember when this came out? I remember when this came out. I was really surprised. I was surprised. It had been a little while since they had, the thing had gone. Omnivore Recording put this out. Original recordings done by Van Dyke Park. So this album is a collaboration. An attempt at the spirit of a collaboration or some kind of a collaboration, but in a collaboration where the entire roles were flipped. Van Dyke is in control of this record. This is a Van Dyke record. This is not a Brian record. Brian sings on this record. That's about it. Van Dyke produces, arranges these records the same way of like he was in the bag of doing it at the same time. When you look at Van Dyke Park, sometimes some of the stuff you don't realize is that, arrangement is the whole deal with this. And he does all kind of arrangements throughout a couple of the Jim O'Rourke productions, Ease by Joanne Newsom, which is big. I mean, he did a lot of stuff for the underground and, not underground, but alternative artists and around this time. So I don't really, the thing about this record, Orange Crate Artisan, okay, Sail Away, okay, we know that. But, My Janine, Movies is Magic, I just don't see anything more than him kind of singing this song. It sounds like him singing on a Van Dyke record. And it's not really one of my more favorite Van Dyke records. It's a good thing. It sounded to me like it was a process where they were working and trying to get Brian back out. And so that's really kind of what they did. There are moments on it that shine. And maybe that's why I put above Lucky Old Son. Yeah, it's pretty close. Maybe Lucky Old Son should flip with it. But let's go on to the next one, and probably the most collaborative new one here that you had that was tried out with some new artists. You've got a collaborative album, No Peer Pressure. It's hilarious. It said peer pressure, and then you've got the peers of the doc on this. Look at all these collaborations. On the Island, She and Him. Remember, She and Him did that tribute to Brian Wilson. It was really good. Saturday Night, Nate Royce. You've got Cebu on Runaway Dancer. It's on every song. There's pretty much a lot of collaborators on here. Casey Musgraves, excuse me. David Marks, Al Jardine. The Right Time and Whatever Happened, that's not bad. Tell Me Why with Al Jardine is good too. Then you get Sail Away with Blondie Chaplin and Al Jardine coming back up again. Sail Away keeps popping its head up here, doesn't it? Half Moon, Mark Isham, Peter Hall, and so I think there's some other people who did some backgrounds and things with this record, that some of those Disney people, and I think that Zooey, whatever her name was on one of these songs. But it's an interesting record because part of it is really strong, and you kind of wish, this record has a connection with some of the sound of the songs. Some of the songs that I like very much from the last Beach Boys record is That's Why God Made the Radio. And this is a plea from me and probably a lot of other people that, hey, Beach Boys folks, let's do a reissue of that on vinyl, please. I don't think we kind of missed that. We need more. I think if they did a run of 10 or 25,000, they could even sell them. But anyway, I just think because that song's kind of turned into a big thing. But the sound of that kind of reminds me of some of this stuff. I mean, he's really working for some of the first time here that I can hear him really, really working hard at trying to do something new. And that was really probably the last one. I said that Lucky Old Son was him going out the door. I guess at least the composition one. Here's probably another flicker here that came up in the middle. This is 2015, but after this would really be the last original record that he would make, and it is a collaborative record, so it's kind of watered down in that way. It's disappointing, but the quality of it gets me there. Let's go to number 3. And again, if I was going to put Sweet Insanity, Thank You, and all those songs, all those great songs, and you guys need to look that up somewhere if you haven't. I think I talked about that in the other video we had about Beach Boys bootlegs. We talked about Sweet Insanity and the different versions there were of that. But that was a follow-up to that. And we're not going to get to there now because the next one's going to go to 1998 release. Really more of a yacht rocky type of sound. Joe Thomas and the Illinois producer hooks up with Brian and does Imagination, and really it's kind of the beginning of a new little jump for him. South American was a song that was good, but the track that is just really outstanding is Your Imagination. There's a lot of people that don't really like like it because we have this record. The reason I think some people rag on it is because you've got a lot of songs that were it's kind of a ramshackle thing. You wish you had a better batch of songs to support this, like you did in some of the others we're going to talk about here in a minute. But Sherry, She Needs Me was an old song from the end of the Beach Boys. We had the demo of that. South American. Keep an Eye on Summer, of course, is a beautiful song of his. Let 'Em Run Wild. Sunshine was a new one. Lay Down Burden's a beautiful song. That's a nice one. I probably should have done that. I should have listed that on my great list. And then we look at Happy Days and Sunshine. And great record. The thing of it is the highlights. Your Imagination by itself and Lay Down Burden. Those two songs are superior. I think Cry is okay and Happy Days is okay. Those are really his own ones, but this is one surprisingly where I just wish he would have worked a little more with Joe Thomas to do a couple more songs. I know they had they came up with Dream Angel and he worked on Lay Down Burden and Sunshine, but I do wish that they would have done more of those and not included the other hooks things to get people in. Hey, he's doing Beach Boys songs, well, Sherry, She Needs Me, it's a Carol Bayer Sager tune as well. One of these weird, we talked about how she worked with Bob Dylan. Well, she worked with Brian Wilson too. But anyway, that is Imagination, and that is number 3. Now we are going to go to number 2. And for number 2, I'm going to pick believe it or not, this is how weak this is. I'm going to pick what I consider being inferior versions of the song, some Sweet Insanity with a couple ones over, and I have it on CD, and I found it on CD. I'm talking about Getting In Over My Head. I remember when this record came out, I was perplexed at the cover. I didn't really know, since I saw these songs, I'm like, why is he, redoing these? And it seemed like there was a different one on each front thing here. It talks about him and a picture of him and Elton John and McCartney and different people. They always whip out the same guys here around him. And then there's Carl, of course. But this record, this record, Getting In Over My Head, really is kind of frustrating to me because it sounded like almost like a polished up 2004 version of what was supposed to be released as a second solo record, Sweet Insanity. What songs am I talking about? It's got some Andy Paley stuff too on it. People don't like it very much, but I like the songs a lot. Soul Searching has Carl Wilson on singing on it, which is a nice song. But Getting In Over My Head is a song that he did also on the first Sweet Insanity deal. And a lot of these songs, had other writers, which really is surprising to me. Don't Let Her Know She's an Angel, which is superb. Rainbow Eyes, Make a Wish. Those are all 3 really chestnuts. And some of the better songs from Original Sweet Insanity. And, you know, it's a mixed bag. Fairy Tale, the David Foster song, not bad. Van Dyke Park's thing at the end of the waltz, a little bit perplexing. I don't like the first song with Elton John. I'm not really an Elton John fan, but I like Desert Drive a lot. And that's another Andy Paley song, which is interesting. There are a couple. The Saturday Morning in the City and Desert Drive are completely written by Andy Paley, which is surprising that he would put these on this record. So, you know, he's here, and this is what happened. And so, you know, you look at these. It said Brian Wilson on all these, so I guess these songs are collaborative things. So I'm wrong when I said they were all Paley song or Thomas's song. These are songs that he wrote with them. So he gets a rating better on Fairy Tale too, which is interesting. Which is interesting to me, and the Waltz, which is beautiful. I don't know. It's a perplexing record, man. It's a perplexing album, and it's clearly one that was put together to prolong some new material, and not to not deal in a lot of these covers yet. Still, you know, you still have Some Friend Like You with Paul McCartney. It's kind of an awkward thing, but it's not bad. And he's got the thing with Steve Kalenich, which is funny. I have that Steve Kalenich album I showed you before, that unreleased thing, which is really kind of odd, you know, when you hear the sound of it. I never really thought it sounded that much like Brian. But anyway, let's get to number one. And you know what number one is. Number one was one that shook, you know, I think shook people up. I mean, because of you could hear the Landy tension in it too. And I'm talking about the first one here of the Keith. This one right here, man. Walking the line, melt away, baby, let your hair grow long. One for the boys, there's so many. Nighttime, let it shine. Brilliant, man. Brilliant, 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 brilliant. I love this, the way that this record is in here. If none of you have seen the great little art appearance from him at the time, it's astonishing where he's at, you know, mentally. When you hear it, it's jarring, and it reminds you of then Sweet Insanity sounds a little more like, you know, a little more like where he was coming from later. I like the smart girls. Da, 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 da. I mean, you ought to hear it. I'm telling you, anybody who's not heard Sweet Insanity, please go download it now. It's no wonder it was rejected, but it could have been edited and put into something nice. I mean, you can't tell how well it really was recorded at the time. But evidently, Landy was laying on super heavy at the time and trying to interfere with the project. But that's where we're at least on that project, despite him being involved in it, despite everything else. You know, Warner Brothers working along with him. And on this case, I think Lenny Warnaker had something, didn't he? Yeah, and Russ Titleman, Jeff Lynne. I mean, Andy Paley. He had some great producers on this record. And when it came out, it sounded produced, but people were so happy when planets are spinning around. There's so many people loved it. I mean, it was a beautiful thing. And despite it not being Brian really fully, because the damage that had been done, still, this new thin guy came out here sounding, you know, writing out with a lot of the same harmonic inclinations and a lot of the same. You can tell it's the same dude, man, but it's just somebody like a little bit older and a little bit damaged, and but still enough to make some beautiful music, man. So that's my countdown of Brian Wilson's solo records, guys. Please leave your thoughts below. I always got to remind you to hit that smash the like button, but you guys, if you care, you're going to hit that every time anyway. Don't want to leave it to the end here because not a lot of people make it to the end. But anyway, right on, man. Brian Wilson, we're going to really miss him. And, you know, his creative really spark has been gone for a little while, but nevertheless, didn't stop me from seeing that great Smile tour when it came around. And years ago, to kind of right a wrong, I guess, as some people see it. But anyway, I'll be back at you. Leave your thoughts about Brian. I know you guys love Brian. Please talk about Brian. Leave anything about Brian. You know what you know what to do here, man. Smash that like button, and I will be back at you very soon with a Brian solo probably just a top 10 list. Okay, we'll catch you guys soon. Thanks.